I grew up in Virginia, just outside of DC, and my parents are both were both born in Haiti, and both of my grandfathers are Haitian, both of my grandmothers are American, and for me, growing up in Northern Virginia really left me wondering how to place myself in terms of the broader culture of my peers at the time, but also just the town that I grew up in outside DC. In a lot of those experiences, I was certainly the only Haitian kid, but a lot of times the only black kid in those classes. And for me, music became a good reference point for me to connect with other parts of the world that I wasn't able to experience at that point, and specifically other people, and people who gave me some insight to how I fit into that picture, where I came from, but also just made me a little bit irreverent in terms of, or a little bit omnivorous musically. There's no immediate thing that I felt like I had to build on as this is my base, my form. And so I was searching from an early age and having fun with it too. And so that set the stage for just a lot of musical influences in my life. Music from the Caribbean, West Africa, and of course the States. And that's been something that I've always felt has been a part of my musical diet, is just experimentation, openness, and curiosity to what different forms are out there. And then also a little bit of seeking for some mentorship, or for some, a kind of family to fit into musically. That can be a good thing as much as it can be an alienating thing. And so you end up finding a lot of people and finding things that you have in common with a lot of people. And feeling a little bit on the outside of things actually can, in some ways, create more access points than feeling too burrowed in my experience. I've been playing music since 4th grade, when they offered an orchestral instrument, and I chose the cello. And at that time, I remember, feeling excited about the possibility of playing because of the theme to Jaws, and wanted to play, I think, the most metal instrument I could at the time. And so the cello was the right fit for me at that point. I only played cello for a year and then moved on to trumpet and played that for the next several years. And I think those early musical experiences really taught me a lot about what it's like to play in a group. And at that point, I had been practicing a lot. You'd practice the piece, and we were working on Can, and only every now and then did my music veer into the main theme of Can. So I was just kind of grappling with, like, what part of the song is this? What part of the piece is this that I'm playing? And I just remember our first rehearsal with the whole orchestra, just being so moved by how this piece came together. And I think from then I was hooked. So I've been playing music ever since, and studied visual art in college, which is maybe my first love, drawing. And so I have always kind of approached the two as informing one another, and just both good modes of expression. And now realize how much splitting my attention between those two has taught me about a sort of universal principle of art making, of composition or improvisation and expression. And so I've found that I'm always balancing a lot of different disciplines, and in hopes to either fuse them or get something out that can't be spoken with just one language. Since I moved to San Francisco, I moved to the Bay 17 years ago. And since then, I've been teaching. I most recently have been a theater teacher between 2013 and 2024. Through that, got a chance to do a lot of script writing, playwriting, and also had a chance to develop sets. And so I was using a lot of my sculpture background in that, writing background, but then was also scoring radio dramas and different productions that we would put on. For me, that became a core anchor of what I love to do artistically, which is do a little bit of storytelling, but include create load-bearing beams of that story that aren't just language. So whether that's movement, music, a visual element, I find myself so I'm really attracted to the idea of how you can move somebody through an emotional experience or a train of thought and be engaging all of these types of understanding that we all have in unexpected ways. So I think that helps me a lot when I'm thinking about music and certainly other types of art forms as well. I'm working on several different music projects and visual art projects. One of them is a group called Agnes Martian that I have been playing with for the past 3 years or so. Started by two very dear friends of mine, Ben Rogers and Zacharias Thompson. I play keyboards in that group, and that's an explorational, how should I describe it? My take on it is it's inspired by a certain blend of library music, soundtracks, an amount of retrofuturism and experimental forms, mixing jazz and other types of musical disciplines. I also play with an ensemble called Musile Project, and that's started as an open invite jam session that we would host on Sundays in Oakland. And through that, met a bunch of people in the area and the broader music community. Since its start, it's turned into more of a performance outfit than it really started as. It was a very open door, informal improvisation practice for a long time. We still do that, but we play a lot of shows out. And so those are the two main projects that I'm working on. This year in particular, I've been doing residencies as well. I just did a program at Audium in San Francisco, which is a spatial sound theater with 128 speakers built in to it. It was built in the 70s as a very forward-looking theater for experimental music. They run a residency every year for 3 composers to write and record a piece of music specifically for that space. And that's really gotten me into site-specific work and spatial composition. And so the next few projects that I'm gearing up for are also spatial programming. Currently, I also have vague notions, ambitions for producing some type of theatrical musical work, something in the realm of experimental opera, incorporating some dramaturgy and some surrealism. A chance to be a little bit wild. I think this moment that we're living through calls for a range of expressions that I've personally had a hard time pinning down how to package into a show format. And so that's a nut that I'm trying to crack, whether that be through experimental theater or music or installation art. There's a tranche of emotions that I haven't yet incorporated into my performance practice that I'm eager to explore performatively. So what do I think about the future? What am I thinking about the future? What am I doing with my life? It's a big question. I would be kidding myself if I said I had a plan, but I have a strategy that I'm deploying, which is one that incorporates flexibility, just staying mentally and emotionally limber and taking care of myself as best as possible. And that includes friendships, like actual relationships that are durable and really mean something to me. It also includes just getting some fresh air and some exercise on a regular basis, just taking care of my human and being insistent on that. I just thinking about the like sort of long-term future. I think there was a turning point in my life. My dad passed away in 2018, and that changed. And this is right. Also, of course, the whole pandemic and the lockdowns and everything had a huge impact. But I think something kind of crystallized in my thinking that life is long enough to do a lot, and certainly long enough to wish you were doing a lot if you're not. But it's short enough that you can go for it. You can take some chances. You be disciplined about it. There's a long enough time to get good at things or to end up places you never thought you would. And at the same time, the clock is ticking. So those are things that I just feel kind of liberated to attack in the present, in the future, and to just keep that perspective, because there are a lot of directions that I feel are available to be pulled based on all sorts of circumstances. I've just seen what a gift it is to have some clarity from people that I admire, who have some clarity about what they want and develop a relationship with that desire and approach it with some specificity, that you can do some amazing things. So I'm taking that lesson to heart in thinking about what does the future look like where the art is tight, the people are tight, and it's characterized by real learning and joy, but also not just primarily joy, just feeling like you really did it, like you really lived. And I think trying to maintain that balance is going to be a tall order, and I'm up for the task. So I'm excited about what the future holds in that way.